Hello, making a second video for today on the previous video and what Jiddu Krishnamurti said to Dr. David Bohm. They are talking about the mysterious, and every religion in history has talked about the mysterious and was trying to find it, the secret, the hidden, the sacred, the mysterious realm of the infinite. And people have been trying to achieve that through meditating, and this mysterious is also, can be reached in a very, or that's what people think, it can be reached in a very advanced meditation or something, and people are trying to become enlightened because they think then once they're enlightened they have access to the mysterious or the sacred. And all this seeking and searching, kind of probing. I mean, there's always, of course, a curiosity in probing into the future and finding things and finding solutions and so on. But I also see, the negative side of it, that a lot of people are searching and seeking this like they're seeking a drug, like they're seeking some kind of mushroom or an experience, like a roller coaster ride or this amazing psycho trip or some kind of amazing experience that thrills them, that excites them. And that is completely besides the point of what the sacred, the mysterious really is. The mysterious is beyond all of the seeking and searching and wanting, and will never be achieved through this venue of seeking and searching for the next big trip or the next big orgasm. Those are all nice experiences, but it doesn't touch on the secret, on the sacred, on the mysterious. It doesn't touch on what real enlightenment is. And I shy away from that word because it is being overmarketed by now, as you can tell. And there was a student that Jiddu Krishnamurti had, and his name was U.G. Krishnamurti. He was a long-term student of Jiddu Krishnamurti. He's a generation younger than Jiddu Krishnamurti. They come from the same area in South India. They both come from the Theosophical Society created by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky around the turn of the century in 1900, or maybe even before. And she was always searching before anyone else. She is, I would say, she's the godmother of the New Age movement, which really started 2 centuries ago. And she was the very first hippie, I would say, before there has ever been hippies. She was the very first feminist, the very first searcher for truth, and a woman from Russia, psychic and very highly intuitive, God-level soul, and someone who saw the greater future, had a greater vision of what real honest searching for truth and for making us heal, what all that was all she was she was about. This is a real caring approach that she had. And so Yuji Krishnamurti, who came from an extremely wealthy family background and who was in the Theosophical Society because his parents were apparently in there, and who admired Annie Besant, who had taken over Helena Petrovna Blavatsky by that time. And that was around 1905 or 1910, something like this. And Judy Krishnamurti was born in 1895, so he was discovered when he was still a boy, like, I don't know, 10 years old or something. I don't know the exact numbers, but something like that. And so Annie Besant discovered him. She saw him at a beach, I think it was, and she took him under his wing. She rescued that was Jiddu Krishnamurti, rescued him. Okay, so then a generation later, as Jiddu Krishnamurti was teaching already, and had already separated himself from the Theosophical Society, that was when Yuji Krishnamurti was a young man and or a teenager, and was listening and was asking a lot of questions and wanted to find out the truth in all of this. But then it turned out much later that Yuji Krishnamurti, a great person, a light worker soul, who was really searching and very, very, very serious about it. But this is the problem. He had already lost touch with the inner child to the point where he was already too captured by society and the egoic drive of society. So this egoic drive to attain enlightenment, but always from an egoic perspective of, I want this because that will give me, that will give me this or that. That will give me power. That will give me a status, or that will give me popularity or something. That's the egoic drive that drives people to want to have enlightenment. And that's why, and he kept on coming up to Jiddu Krishnamurti. They both have the same last name, or in India, I think it is reversed. The last name is the first. So Krishnamurti is a very popular name, kind of like David in the United States. So, but they had a different family name, of course. But that's why, because of this name Krishnamurti, they get confused a whole lot by people who don't really know the story about it. So Yuji Krishnamurti, I'm going to just refer to him as Yuji. He was a student of Jiddu Krishnamurti and a generation younger. Yuji came from a very wealthy family, while Jiddu Krishnamurti was living in poverty when he was rescued by Annie Besant. And so Jiddu Krishnamurti, much older than in around 40, was teaching, had already split away from the Theosophical Society that wanted to put him on the pedestal of the Maitreya, which is the Maitreya is the one who, it's really translated into the one who speaks good, a very powerful position, a Buddha type of title, the Buddha position, like a messenger from the infinite, like a very, very high position, the highest form of Buddha. And Buddha is also a title. It's a title of someone who is extremely wise and has something to say. But he rejected that. He didn't want anything to do with this because he knew that that is just another form of creating another religion and in creating another form of intellectual laziness in people, where people then go like, oh, well, he is on a pedestal and all I need to do is I need to prostrate myself in front of this Maitreya and give myself to him, and then I don't have to do anything. I don't have to take any responsibility. And that is exactly what he was against. He didn't want this to happen. And so he had to disappoint Annie Besant, who rescued him, who had these great hopes for him. And he said he wants to set humanity free, on their own feet. That means, not being worship in a worshiping state of mind, which most people on planet Earth are. They either worship Jesus or Muhammad or also Gautama Buddha. And Gautama Buddha, which is the same soul as Jiddu Krishnamurti, and it is the infinite embodiment, actually. But that's why he saw that this is not going to work, to take that approach. So because that is exactly what he's talking against. He wants to empower people. So when he says that when someone is seeking this enlightenment state, and you or someone as in a responsible position who is practicing very high level meditation states, sees that this person is coming from an egoic drive to get to this question in the first place, will have to explain to that person that what you're seeking here is not your personal property. And what he means by this is, it is not your property. It is, you do not have access to this yet. In the soul developmental state that you are at right now. That doesn't mean you can never achieve it. It doesn't mean that you can't have a glimpse of it. It doesn't mean you can't ever be in it. But you cannot be in it when you are in the state of egoic drive. So the moment you are seeking it as an experience, as a trip or orgasm, or to have better position in society, to be admired more, which most people are doing this, not even knowing it. Most gurus, some of them are in some kind of a melange state where, I think they see halfway through, but then they stop right there before they see themselves actually doing it, because the ego doesn't really want to allow that to happen. So the ego makes things very, very, very diffused for us to really actually see ourselves in the act of doing something out of a selfish motive. So, but as long as we're in that selfish motive drive, there is that, what is called the sacred, is not attainable for us in that moment. So it's kind of like, it kind of cancels itself out, You can only be in that state and experience it if you completely have shed all that egoic stuff out. And how do we shed that? How do we? That is the question they're pursuing. Jiddu Krishnamurti said that it is doable. We can do it. He said, of course, it's doable, but we have to come out of that state of egoic drive. And as long as the egoic drive modalities that we're using, as long as they're functioning in some way or shape, people are not getting to that other side. To that other side, to that other realm, the realm of the infinite, the sacred, the enlightenment, the real spiritual, and I don't like that word, the real spiritual in a sense, because it's not, you can't grasp it, it's elusive, it is not in this 3D realm, it's outside of that. I saw an incredibly sad documentary the other day about this woman, Eliza, Oriental lady who was murdered in a hotel in LA. She told her parents, that was the last conversation she had with her parents. She told her parents she had met a boyfriend that she really liked. And apparently that boyfriend was a psycho, and he was trying to recreate a movie that he had seen. That's why I'm so against horror movies, because people recreate that. So what he did is he must have obviously given her hallucinogenic drugs in a drink without her knowing it, because the camera in the elevator of that hotel recorded her going in and out of that elevator with the door open. The door was open. She I think she locked the door open. She went in there, locked the door open. And then she was sort of hiding there. And then she was going back out of the elevator. And she was playing hide and seek with an animal. But not those Pokemon type of things, where you use a tablet. She didn't have anything in her hand. She didn't have cyber goggles or anything, or bionic eyes or whatever. That was a psycho-induced trip, and it was very clear. And when she was in an absolutely joyful mental state, encountering this animal from another dimension. And she was playing hide and seek, and was hiding in the elevator, and then looking around, seeing if the animal was coming, and then waving to him, come. And then he came over, and right in front of the elevator door, the camera filming the whole situation, she was starting to pet that animal like this. Just petting in the air, holding the animal with one hand on one side and petting with the other, just like you do with a pony. And yeah, that animal was about the height of a pony, and kind of like, one of those unicorn ponies or something, an animal. I don't know how that animal appeared in shape to her, but it was about the height of a short pony, a Shetland pony or something. And she was in so much joy, like, the state that children are in when they're playing with imaginative friends and with their toys, and they're creating an entire story around it, and they're in such a joyful state of creating. That's what I feel like when I paint. That is that state, and that is the sacred. That is, you can be in that state, for a moment, because in that moment you have shed all of your egoic drive. You have shed all all these ideas and about yourself, the self-images and all of this. I am a writer, or I am a psychologist and I am a student, or I have a diploma hanging on a wall, and all of these things that are coming from the 3D world, from the field of reality, which is an illusion. It means nothing, absolutely nothing. It is the joyful creative state of a child. That is what means something. And when you're in that state, then you are feeling it. But you can't hold it. You can't hold on to it. You can't have it. Like that old saying, you can't have the cake and eat it too. That really applies to that as well. When I'm in a state of painting, I don't need to take any drugs. My brain is already constantly in that state. That is a blessing and a curse as well. So, but that Lisa, that story is extremely tragic. But she got to enjoy some happy moments with the other dimension, with the animal. And I hope that that animal, which is her spirit guide, has protected her from feeling pain, because that guy tortured her to death. And the guy who gave her the drug, he raped her, and he tortured her to death, and then he threw her into a water tank that was supplying the hotel. It's an unbelievable story. Unbelievably sick, that person who did that to her. Such an innocent girl, student at the university. And so I just hope that that spirit animal, the spirit guide, has made it so that she didn't feel any pain. That's what I wish, because I don't like suffering at all. I don't want anyone to suffer, whatever their experience and whatever forms of exit they experience out of this 3D world and go back into the non-physical for good. Into the intermediate space between incarnations, the resting space, so to speak. People call it heaven, and there's no hell. It's just heaven. It's just bliss and blitz. My husband calls it blitzed out like a flash. So yeah, so that's that other realm, and so she doesn't have to suffer anymore now. But such a beautiful indigo woman, who was a writer and young and could have contributed so much to society, killed by a psychopath who was at the other end of the spectrum, the total egoic, total ego, totally blinded by ego, by the drive of needing, wanting. So that is the opposite of the sacred of that state of total creativity and modern art. Modern art in the sense of creating something that is nurturing and peaceful and loving. I'm not talking about the pseudo artists out there. I'm not talking about Damien Hirst. Okay. Damien Hirst comes from the other extreme, from the other spectrum. He comes from the ego maniac driven realm. He's the 3D earth field of reality, me wanting. It's always wanting, and using flashiness, and using horror also to get his way. Be loud and aggressive to get seen, and then there are people who are worse. I don't want to get into the snow. I've already talked about it in my other videos. So those are states of suffering, extreme suffering inside the brain. That's why they get into this ego drive, this wanting. In Sanskrit they call it krage, which is like this here, krage. You know, in German it's called kriegen. Kriege. Kriege has two meanings. It comes from the Sanskrit word krage. It's a word nomadic development. And it means getting, taking, and it also means going to war at the same time. So that's very interesting to see the linguistic background of these words. So this is directly linked to a very psychopathic, very dead inside state that is completely split off from the innocent child that creates peaceful modern art, and the child like that Elisa petting that spirit animal from the other dimension. That was so beautiful to see, you know. It just gave me goosebumps when I saw that documentary, when I saw that footage that from the elevator camera. My goodness. Because I don't think this stuff like this has been recorded on camera very often in the world. So, okay, be careful, okay? Please. Careful. So, yeah. So I needed to talk about this. This is very important, I think. I don't want to make this too long. It's already almost half an hour. But what he means by this is not your territory, he doesn't mean this in a negative way. What he means by that is just, and he probably said that to Yuji, because Yuji kept on coming up to him and asking, Jiddu, give me give me the secret, give me the recipe to enlightenment. What do I need to do? You know. So he's already coming from the wrong mindset. He's already approaching this from the other side. So you can't be at this side at the same time as you are on the other side. So when you're in the field of reality, of wanting Krage and all of this, you are split off from the beauty of peace and enlightenment and that beautiful world of the other dimension that some people get a glimpse of when they are on hallucinogenic drugs. But the problem is this here. If you take drugs and you are not really ready for experiencing this, you can come out very damaged, and you will retreat further into the religion that you have been indoctrinated with as a child. Because you come back out of that, maybe if you're lucky you have a blissful moment in that hallucinogenic state, right? But you come back into the old reality. You can't have the cake and eat it too. You just can't do it. You can't take the cake with you. You can't take a moment of peace with you and sell it or deal it out to someone or pimp it out or, you know, hold it in your hand and say, here, I own it now like a piece of gold. That doesn't work that way, because all of this owning and taking with you, you know, people took things into the afterlife. Well, that's what they thought. You know. They put entire living beings into tombs of pyramids, and this is all from the realm of the ego, me wanting, me owning, you know. It is so split off that they even take their living beings and put them into the tomb for them to horribly die in there. That's how split off these kings and monarchs were in Egypt. Unbelievable, you know. And but we still, it's still happening. We still have these. This mental state is still there in humanity, causing all that suffering in the world. So how do we? The question is, how do we convey this information? How do I convey this information to other people to become aware of this? Become aware of the beginnings of this Krage, of this wanting, and dissolve it in its tracks while it is arising. That's why I think about this all the time, because I want to see an end to suffering in the world. So you guys take care. Bye bye.